But you do realize you're killing people. You're killing people. Hi, I'm Laurie, Couture, author of Instead of Medicating and Punishing, and the upcoming book, Nurturing and Empowering Our Sons. I wonder if you're as done with COVID-19 as I am. You probably are, and so are your children. Many children are very distressed by this remote learning situation. They're distressed by the tedium of it and the exhaustion of it. Some children may say they want to go back to school, but it's most likely the relationships and the activities that they miss, not schooling itself. Today we're going to talk about 12 ways that you can today release your children from this exhaustion of remote learning, as well as, some would say, the nightmare of public schooling with all of its intrusions into your family and on your children's time and on your children's lives. So let's get started. So step one is, this is a complex one, step one is securing childcare for your children or your child. Now this is tricky. It also depends on the age of your child and the laws in your state on when children are legally allowed to be left alone. I was a single working parent who unschooled my son from the age of 12 on, so I understand that childcare is a necessity and it's an important one, especially if you have a child who's disabled like my son was. During this whole COVID-19 situation with remote learning, you may have found that you have pulled resources out of the air for childcare for your child. So that is an excellent place to start. A whole video could be done on this because it is a very complex subject, especially if you are a single working parent or both parents work outside the home. It's important to realize that you have to think outside the box, though, and not view public school as an option. When you do that, you will be able to tap into your network. If you have family that can help, that's ideal. Not everybody has that, luxury. Some people have friends who run their own businesses and wouldn't mind having your child around. In the beginning, when my son started with his unschooling and homeschooling journey, we actually had a different childcare provider every day, and there were days that he came to work with me. So you will need to get creative when it comes to childcare, and that is something that may take some time to figure out if you don't have a lot of family resources to help you. Once you get involved with homeschool, other homeschooling families in the homeschool community, you will have other options and networks to work with. So that's step one. Step two is learn your state's homeschool laws. This is very important. Every single state has a different law on homeschooling. There is not a federal homeschooling law, so there is no one blanket statement that I could make to cover all 50 states. In order to find these resources, you could do a simple Google search. You could see if your state has a homeschool association. Many states do. You can also go to the hslda.org website. They have an interactive tool with a USA map on it. You just click on your state on the map, and it'll tell you a variety of pieces of information that you need to know, such as whether your state is a high or a low regulation state. It'll tell you what your state requirements are, what your options are, and it'll give you an overview of the law. I do recommend that all parents go to the law itself and look it up. So that is a great place to start. Step three is based upon your state's homeschooling laws. If your state requires it, send a letter of intent to your child's school's superintendent or to what is called a participating agency. That can be a private school. You can learn about that in your state's homeschooling laws. Now, really low regulation states do not even require a letter of intent, so make sure you find out if you even need to send one. In a high regulation state, you need to do more than just send a letter of intent. You also may need to submit a curriculum and a list of hours and subjects. So again, be sure to know what your state's requirements are so that you are not submitting more than what is required by law, and also so that you don't run afoul of the law and not send enough. Be sure when you are sending your letter of intent to include that you are homeschooling in accordance with the RSA or the law that is on the book. So make sure you actually list the law that protects you, gives you extra protection. Only provide what is required by law. Never give the school system more than is required by law. Step 4, this is where the freedom begins. Step 4 is to deschool your beliefs about education. In other words, you need to challenge the belief systems that you have been given about what education looks like. Otherwise, you're in danger of just recreating school at home. And in doing so, parents who do that, many homeschoolers and unschoolers, when they start out, they try to replicate school at home with textbooks and assignments and worksheets and online programs, and then they find that their children are just as unhappy as they were in school. It just starts to slip off into lethargy and boredom, and their children really not being very enthusiastic about the program. So to avoid that, it's important that you do the internal work and challenge your beliefs about what education is. That's tough for all of us because although there are a very small percentage of adults who grew up in a very free situation or went to a democratic free school like Sudbury Valley or were homeschooled or unschooled, the majority of us, especially us in Generation X, we were all schooled. We were put through the school system, and so our beliefs about education have been irrevocably formed by that system, even when we deschool ourselves. So it's important to recognize that and to challenge those beliefs so that we can free our children to learn by nature's intent. So this leads me into step 5, which is a really important step and is part of the deschooling process for your child, is unplug your child from screens. Yes, I know, I hear it. And before you start jackhammering on that dislike button, hear me out. It's important to understand that you don't want your child to go from one system of oppression, which is the public school system, into a new system of oppression, which is technology, the screen. There are some children who are able to self-regulate, but the majority of children are challenged by that. It is extremely challenging for most children to pull themselves away from the screen when the medium itself has addiction built into it. Addiction is what sells technology. Today's video games and social media are not the video games that we played in the 80s and 90s. They are a whole new generation of games, and social media is a brand new force. It's only 10 years old, and we are understanding that these mediums cause depression, and those who have invented many of these technologies, such as Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, executives from Apple, Microsoft, and Facebook, do not let their children use these technologies for a reason, because they are aware that addiction is built into these systems. This is Las Vegas slot machine style addiction. So it is crucial that if you want your child to be able to interact with the real world and explore what learning is all about, that they are unplugged from the screen so that they can interact in a whole body, holistic manner. So step 6 goes along with the unplugging process. Step 6 is to detox your child, or allow your child to have a detox period from being schooled. Depends on how many years children are there, but some children need a very long detox period, especially if they've been there all through high school. There's some children who maybe have only done it a year or two might absolutely just immediately know what to do with freedom. But so many children who have been public school, they really struggle in the beginning to reconnect to their passions and interests. So it's important to have a detox period where you just allow children to be and to experience what freedom feels like, and to understand what it's like to be self-directed. That is not something that they've been taught. They've been taught the opposite, that everything they do is regimented and done either by a bell or by an adult's directive. They can't even take care of their bodily needs without somebody telling them when to do so. So it's crucial for children to have that detox period where they can start to trust their own innate mind, body, and spirit and get a sense of what it feels like to be free. This leads us into step 7, which is let your child play and explore his or her interests. This is crucial, and this is the foundation of unschooling and should be the foundation of homeschooling as well. So play, as you understand from my book, my first book, is the very vehicle by which children learn. It is nature's way of growing a brain and making learning interesting and fun and something that children want to pursue and go after. Children are not learning in school when they are forced, when they are made to sit down and tap on screens or fill out worksheets or fall into formation and do what the teacher says. That's what you call assimilation. When children are forced to assimilate information, that's when you start getting into what they call learning disabilities. No child is learning disabled. Nature has imparted every child with the ability to learn, but unfortunately schools have short-circuited the learning process by removing play. And when I say play, I don't mean only young children. Play is necessary all through the grades into high school. If you watch unschooled children, from the youngest children up to kids who are, graduation age, you'll see that the play is non-stop. So young people know how to learn if they're given the space, the permission, and the opportunity to play. Step 8 is very important to playing and to learning. You need to provide materials, resources, and opportunities for your child. Now, I did a video in 2011, I think it's a series of 6 videos called So You Want to Unschool Your Child. Now, those videos, unfortunately back then, they all had to be separated. The platform has really improved now, and the videos can be a lot longer, but back then I had to separate them all into, I think it's 5 or 6 small videos, so you'd have to watch them all to get the whole speech, but the good news is you can pick and choose the ones you want, but I do a whole discussion in there of all kinds of different materials and opportunities and resources that you can explore and offer to your child. And that starts with everything from art supplies, musical instruments, science kits, history books, opportunities in the community, all the points of interest in the community, and field trips that you will find through the homeschool community as well. So make sure to explore as many opportunities as you can. There are a couple wonderful books out there that Homeschooling on a Shoestring is a good one, and also the Unschooling Handbook. This step is so important and prevents your child and your family from getting into a rut of just doing the same old routine thing all the time. So the key is to constantly be pulling in new resources and materials, and they don't have to even cost a lot. There are so many free opportunities out in the community. You just have to keep in touch with your local community calendars and newspapers and online forums to find those opportunities in your community. This leads us into step 9, which will also enhance those opportunities, is get involved with your local homeschool or unschool community. So there might be dozens of groups. You want to join at least 2 or 3. My son was involved with about 4 or 5 of them. Each group has its own energy, it has its own personality, and this is a great way for your child to start to build a new peer group that will be available during the day and not just after school hours like their school friends will be. Because over time it can be hard to keep those friendships up because your child's going to be free all day, and those children are going to have less and less freedom as they move through the grades because after school they're going to have homework. So it is so important to tap into the local homeschool community, get your child involved in some new peer groups that these are kids that are also homeschooled, and so they will share a lot of interests. Childcare can sometimes be traded, and like I said, this is just going to expand your network of opportunities that are available in your community for field trips, for fun activities, for free offerings. And sometimes you'll be able to find that there are many offerings just for homeschoolers in the community during the day. Step 10 is trust nature's intent and process for your child's learning. This is so important. Sometimes homeschool or unschool families, they start to get worried, is my child learning enough? Yes, I promise you, your child is learning. Learning is the constant state of childhood. There is no situation where your child is not learning. Unfortunately, schools teach parents that. They indoctrinate that by saying that they're not learning when they're on school vacations or summer break or summer vacation. So we are sort of acculturated into this idea that children can only learn when they go into a concrete building and sit in these uncomfortable chairs and rows at desks, and they have a tablet in front of them or paper that they're filling out, and a teacher at the top dictating what the curriculum will be from a state curriculum book. So no, children are learning regardless. They are learning all the time. The important thing, though, is that they are learning in a way that is enriching them holistically. Are they passionate about their learning? Provide them all the opportunities like we discussed, and then trust that they will know what they need. Now, older children, they may be very career-oriented. So part of their learning process may be wanting to explore what do they want to do with their future. If they're college-bound, it's a good idea to start looking at what do colleges require. Many young people, young teenagers as young as 14 years old, will even start taking college classes. If your child wants to, say, be an anthropologist, it's important to start really focusing your child on that. Again, pulling back your own excitement and ambition for them, because we can sometimes be so excited about something our child is interested in that we end up causing them to just lose interest in it, because then they start to feel they need to do it to impress us or do it for us rather than innately doing it for themselves. So again, provide the resources, provide the support, be excited about it with them, but never try to pull them along with you with learning. Trust that nature will unfold that. Try not to turn everything into an educational moment. Just allow children to enjoy nature, enjoy a game, enjoy a museum, enjoy the process of learning without having to turn everything into an educational opportunity. Nature will do the work for you. Step 11 is to document your child's learning journey. This is really important because many states require a portfolio and a demonstration of progress from beginning, middle, and end of the school year. There are two ways to document. You can do a daily logbook, which is just to write down some quick notes about the highlights of your child's learning day. And then the portfolio is the second piece of documentation. That's the permanent document that you are going to be submitting if you are required to do an evaluation at the end of the school year. Portfolios are just a great family keepsake. A collection of all the things that your child did, photographs, brochures of places visited, business cards, and samples of work. These are great to keep, and they can be very precious. Another important reason to keep a portfolio is for college credit. You may need to put together a transcript for your child for college, and having the daily logbook and the portfolio will give you the information you need to accurately assess what classes your child took and what grades, because unfortunately most colleges, they talk in grades and classes. So if you're an unschooler and you don't do grades and classes, you can use the portfolio and the daily logbook to convert that into their language. So the portfolio is important for homeschooling laws in your state, for a family keepsake, as well as for college transcripts. Now keep in mind, the portfolio may not be enough in your state. You may also need to do testing, which, by the way, is more than public schools are required to do. Step 12 is to adjust and reassess your homeschooling program. Now this is really important if you start to notice that your child is feeling bored or restless a lot, or maybe they're acting like they're outgrowing the program, they're asking, oh my gosh, to go back to school. So that could be that they're really outgrowing the program and that it's just not working, or you're falling into a rut. So it's really important to adjust and reassess What are my child's passions right now? What are their interests and needs right now? They're not going to be the same as they were last month or 2 years ago or even at the beginning of the school year. Homeschooling should be a dynamic process that is always growing and learning with the child. It shouldn't stay stagnant or become stagnant. If it does, then your child is going to want to go back to school because they're going to forget the drudgery and they're just going to see it as, well, what's going on over there? So it's important. Maybe your child's outgrowing the homeschool group you're in. Maybe try to find another homeschool group. Find new materials. It's important to not box your child in according to maybe what you think they like or even what they think they like, to expose them to a wide range, especially if they feel like they're outgrowing the current program. I hope this video was helpful in getting you started with your child's homeschool journey. Show you it's not as scary as it seems. I know there's a lot of steps, but a lot of those just flow naturally. And I hope that you feel confident and competent that you can do this. Every mammal, every living thing is imbued by nature with the ability to educate their own young. And every child is given the gift of play, which is the impetus for learning. So trust nature, trust yourself, and trust your child. Thank you.